Happy October and welcome to the 19th edition of our Stalwart Review Marathon series, which is arguably the only good thing on YouTube. So there you go. You've clicked on the right place. My name is Andrew Fantasia. Thank you so much for joining me today. As always, if you like this, click the thumb and the bell and the other things that you do on YouTube when you want to say that the thing that you just saw on YouTube was a good thing. And hey, speaking of good things, you know, I'm also a writer. I don't just talk about movies all the time. And I wrote these fantasy novels, We Were Wizards, which you can get on Amazon right this second. I'll put a link in the description below. The purple book comes first, followed by the silver one. But guess what? You can read them in either order because they take place in different time periods. But I don't want to spoil too much. So if you love fantasy or you know somebody who does, We Were Wizards, baby, check it out now on Amazon.com. Or CA if you live in Canada. I'm not going to discriminate. Anyway, it's a review marathon, and if you're just joining us for the first time and you clicked on number 19 instead of number 1, that's odd, but hello. Here's how the review marathons work. Every 3 months, I watch as many movies that I can that I have never seen before, but they have to be at least a year old at the time that I watch them. And then I come here and I talk about them as fast as I am able to without doing them too much of a disservice. And this 3 months was supposed to be kind of a dry spell for me because I had a bunch of summer camps I was working and I had school starting in September. But guess what? We still got a pretty decent amount of new flicks on the menu today. 28 motion pictures have touched these eyeballs that have never touched these eyeballs before. And we're going to talk about them right this second. So let's get started. 976 Evil. A film that's going to be very confusing to anyone who's unaware that people used to pay actual money to call a psychic hotline so they could hear a pre-recorded voice give them a bogus horoscope over the telephone. But yes, folks, that is 100% something people used to actually do. In 976 Evil, the person on the other end of that phone call isn't a recording. It's Satan. And that's pretty much it. I kind of like this, but by the third act, Evil Ed from Fright Night is just playing Evil Ed again, and it kind of loses steam. The Abominable Dr. Phibes. This British horror creates a tremendously chilling original villain and runs with it. It feels like they put The Phantom of the Opera and Saw together in a Technicolor blender, added a whole lot of great dark British humor, and made one of the world's coolest smoothies. There are gorgeous sets and elaborate death traps, and oh my god, a scene shot entirely on location in Highgate friggin' Cemetery on a chilly autumn morning, which is so atmospheric, I might as well just die right now because nothing is ever going to top that. Dr. Phibes rises again. He's back, baby! This time, Dr. Phibes is trying to use some kind of magical ancient Egyptian elixir to bring his wife back from her near-dead state. But to get it, he's got to go straight to the source. Phibes' whole vibe and Egypt are a match made in heaven. There's a scene in this one involving scorpions that is so viscerally terrifying that it almost brought me physical pain, but it was worth every second. And the comedy between the two police officers, both back from the original, is the stuff of British legend. God, these movies were so much fun. The African Queen. This is not one of those mid-century Disney family films like Darby O'Gill or Herbie the Love Bug, but it might as well be. The African Queen is just a good old-fashioned adventure story that can delight audiences both young and old, or in my case, young oldish. It's just so sweet and charming. Katharine Hepburn and Humphrey Bogart are playing the most sincere, heart-on-their-sleeve characters you've ever seen in your life. Even though the plot revolves around them trying to evade German forces during World War I, it's all painted in the kind of lighthearted strokes that would receive a hefty nod of approval from Bob Ross. I had a swell time. The Age of Innocence. Emotionally powerful and beautifully written, I have a feeling this is going to be one of those cases where the movie gets even better every time I watch it. You're looking at 3 powerhouse performances gliding their way through a gorgeously rendered period drama, which serves as a red-hot critique of the Gilded Age's stifling conservatism, all with Marty Scorsese at the helm? Forget about it! It's like a coming-out party on my eyeballs and everyone's invited. Alice, Sweet Alice. In the midst of my viewing of this early slasher, I was a little bit baffled, but the more I thought about the film afterwards, the more I like it. It's very deceiving. It's got a real low-budget quality to it, but it's not sleazy trash. There are some incredibly complex psychological themes wrapped up in this blood-stained raincoat of a movie, from indictments of religious fanaticism to child neglect to different kinds of psychoses. And if it looks like I've accidentally shown you clips from an Italian giallo film, that's because this whole thing looks and feels just like a giallo film. I wanted to watch it again through a fresh lens as soon as it was over. All About Eve. Successfully straddling the line between a drama and a Fox in the Henhouse thriller akin to The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, this wildly well-made motion picture is every bit as good as history says it is. If you go in 100% blind like I did, you're going to have a ball with this. Without spoiling anything, All About Eve might have one of the most disturbing and memorable villains from this era of film. The plot doesn't hold your hand, and it took me a while to understand exactly why certain characters were suddenly very angry with certain other ones, but that's more my fault than the film's. It was released the same year as Sunset Boulevard, another excellent movie about an aging actress. While I think I prefer Sunset Boulevard more, All About Eve has so much going for it. From outstanding performances across the board to an early Marilyn Monroe appearance that serves as a reminder as to why people could not take their eyes off of Marilyn Monroe. Wow. Bells Are Ringing. Bells Are Ringing is a musical comedy. As a musical, it falls a little flat. The songs ain't nothing to write home about, except that last one. That one's bomb. But as a comedy, pure fun. It feels a lot like a Shakespearean comedy, in fact, like if Love's Labour's Lost revolved around a telephone switchboard. Judy Holliday is having the goddamn time of her life on screen, and it's infectious as hell to watch her do funny voices while she prances around those drop-dead gorgeous old Hollywood practical sets. Society truly began to crumble when we stopped using sets like those. Camp Nowhere. There's a hell of a great concept here. A bunch of kids pull a con on their parents, creating a fake summer camp to appease their parents so that they can spend the summer relaxing and goofing off. It doesn't always feel like they use this premise to its full potential, but when they do, it's brilliant. Seeing little kids reenact a scene from A Streetcar Named Desire made me spit laugh. Like actual camp, the movie is loud and wild and a lot of fun, but it's not the absolute best way to spend your summer. Carmen. I'm half Maltese, and let me tell you, finding Maltese pop culture isn't easy. It's a tiny island, the underdog of countries, so when I discovered that a Maltese-Canadian woman directed this quaint little motion picture back beneath the scorching sun of the old country, I gotta say, I just about fell out of my Sidju. For the uninitiated, Sidju is Maltese for chair. Don't say this channel never teaches you anything. The titular character in Carmen is a middle-aged woman who suddenly finds herself homeless and takes to haunting the streets of Malta just trying to survive. There's a whole lot of the culture baked into this, but never to the point of making it inaccessible. I can't stress how happy I am that this exists. Death on the Nile. I will never say no to a locked room mystery, especially if it's a period piece, because even though I love you, Benoit Blanc, smartphones make fiction objectively worse. This remake of Death on the Nile is everything I could have hoped it would be, with fantastic directing and acting from the Branagh and some of the most gorgeous cinematography I've seen in any modern film. Everything the camera captures is just so crisp and colorful and beautiful that I would gladly risk life and limb to be on that murder boat in person. Also, there's a scene where Poirot just sits and has coffee in front of the Sphinx, and that's the only life I want to live now. Encino Man. The problem with trying to see as many films as possible is that eventually you're going to have to see one with Pauly Shore in it. Encino Man feels like it needed a little more time to thaw from the prehistoric ice because it accomplishes what it sets out to do in the most half-hearted way possible. The plot is less baked than the filmmakers themselves, and there's a real creepy stalker undercurrent to the main hero that's just too blatant to overlook. Purely as a concept, whoa, there's a caveman walking around in 1992. Let's feed him Doritos and see what happens, is a lot of fun. Or at least it would be in hands more capable than the ones that molded Encino Man. The Fog, 2005. As someone who only marginally enjoyed Carpenter's original, I thought they actually did a bootylicious job with this remake. And when I say booty, I'm using that word the way pirates use it. Because, spoilers, The Fog is about pirate ghosts, which is pretty much the most Scooby-Doo thing ever. But it's played perfectly straight here. I thought this one did a better job fleshing out the ghost's backstory than the original, and it was fun to see Tom Welling play someone who isn't Clark Kent. Fair warning though, after the cold open, the movie treats you to a Fall Out Boy song which could not possibly age this thing anymore. God Told Me To. I love the first half because there is a veritable goldmine of jaunty 70s New York goodness to be had there. It's filmed on location, so Acts 1 and 2 were heaping sandwiches of doctors' offices off the park and St. Patrick's Day parades through crowded midtown streets. Visually all right up my alley, including some literal alleys. Then the big twist kicks in and... it's weird, man, and not my favorite kind of weird either. But I will say this. God Told Me To is really scary, and if you go in blind like I did, I promise you that you will never in a million years be able to predict where this story ends up. The Gorgon. Unlike the titular monster, this looks pretty. It's a Hammer film after all, and they were cranking out some of the best-looking horror films ever made by human hands. But what you end up getting here is a very subdued, emotional story, rather than a creature feature or a slash fest. Come for the atmosphere, but stay for the drama. Postscript, this might actually be the coolest Christopher Lee performance of all time. A Haunting in Venice. Hercule Poirot brings it home again with another fun old-fashioned family whodunit. Except this one may or may not have a ghost in it. If you compare this new Poirot trilogy with the Knives Out trilogy, a strange pattern starts to take shape. Part 1 is the one where it's cold outside but everyone's cozy indoors. Part 2 is the most vibrant and colorful and takes place amidst sun-baked palm trees. And Part 3 is the spooky one with the subdued color palette. The similarities are uncanny, and this can only mean one thing: Illuminati confirmed! The Incredible Shrinking Woman. I don't know how they did it, but the people behind this movie managed to take the heartbreaking story of the Incredible Shrinking Man and flip it upside down into a colorful screwball comedy. And it works. I mean, you're not going to slap your knees into a bruised pulp, but it's funny enough to keep you entertained for 90 minutes. And through it all, it never loses stakes. Lily Tomlin, inimitable as she is in constant peril, and you feel every bit of that tension. Because shrinking, my friends, would be terrifying. It's a great indictment on housewives being taken for granted by their families and on American consumerism. I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. I Still Know What You Did Last Summer somehow manages the Herculean feat of introducing a voodoo subplot which ends up going absolutely nowhere. But they're on a tropical island this time, and Jennifer Love Hewitt has a bunch of scenes where she's wearing a tank top, so 5 stars. I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer. Great title. Crummy sequel. I'll repeat myself here, I don't care. Smartphones make fiction objectively worse. Death threats are way less spooky when they're sent via text messenger. We get calls from bots and weirdos half a world away on a daily basis now. Call me old-fashioned, but if you really want to terrify us, you're going to have to slip some paper in our mailboxes. And if the post is on strike, leave it on our doorstep. Be creative. Texts are just lazy. The Naked Gun 33 1/3. The Final Insult. I watched this immediately after watching All About Eve, and I had the delirious revelation that I may be the only person in the history of the world to have ever partaken in that particular back-to-back combo. So I'm definitely putting that on my Tinder profile. Anyway, The Naked Gun 33 1/3 is less funny than its predecessors while still maintaining its consistent roster of characters and glorious set pieces. It was the only part of the trilogy I hadn't seen before, and even though it's not quite worthy enough to shine the Swiss Army shoes of the first two, there's enough fun stuff in here to keep it from being a total drag. The Phantom of the Opera. I watched this on September 6th, 2025, exactly 100 years to the day from when it first premiered. And as far as silent films go, I think it's one of the best I've ever seen. It's a whole lot more creepy and atmospheric than Andrew Lloyd Webber led me to believe. I wanted to poke around every high-ceiling catacomb and shadowy chamber this picture had to offer. Lon Chaney's phantom makeup truly is the stuff of nightmares, and must have made audiences in 1925 piss their breeches. This has got to be public domain by now, so treat yourself this spooky season and give it a watch. Righting Wrongs. This is peak Hong Kong action cinema. Released stateside as Above the Law, but not to be confused with the Steven Seagal film Above the Law. Localization of Chinese films can be an absolute mess. It tells the story of a prosecuting attorney who moonlights as a vigilante. He has to team up with an honest cop to take on a ring of murderous criminals, and if you need more plot than that, you're probably not cut out for Hong Kong action cinema. It stars Yuen Biao and Cynthia Rothrock, who, I was very disappointed to discover, is a real human being and not a Flintstones character. The film had a lot of shocking moments in between some stellar, lightning-quick kung fu set pieces. I like it because it has a scene set in a smoke-filled mahjong parlor, and it does that thing where people get handcuffed to things they have no business being handcuffed to. Running Scared. It's a tale as old as time, and by time I mean the Reagan administration. Two streetwise cops work together to take down a drug dealer. Despite its very basic premise, I thought Running Scared was absolutely terrific. It eschews the go-to cliche of buddy cop flicks wherein one cop is the straight man and the other the crazy loose cannon. Instead, we get two hilarious, fun-loving cops for the price of one. It's like if Axel Foley had a partner who was also Axel Foley, and it works. Billy Crystal is always a gem, but I was particularly taken with Gregory Hines. These two are just so damn charming together. All that, plus gorgeous gritty 80s Chicago location shooting? I wish they'd made 9 more of these. Shaft's big score. I wasn't prepared to like this as much as I did, but how the hell could I not like it? It's more of what I love, namely Richard Roundtree bopping around those beautiful pre-Giuliani New York City streets, getting into and out of all kinds of trouble. This time there are loan sharks and fun team-ups with old foes and a big car/boat/helicopter chase. I think I might even enjoy this a little more than the original, and that's saying something, baby. Singin' in the Rain. Like anyone who tries pizza or ice cream for the first time could tell you, some things are universally beloved for a reason. This puddle-jumping, lip-syncing, microphone-tugging, umbrella-ignoring motion picture about motion pictures is one of those things. Gene Kelly and Debbie Reynolds will tap dance their way into your heart, with moves so precise you'll be ashamed of how little your own body can do in comparison. Or maybe that's just me. You see, kids, movies used to be made with the intention of making audiences smile. Singin' in the Rain is proof of that. Stung. A horror comedy about a garden party that gets interrupted by a swarm of gigantic mutant wasps. There's an odd slow pace to a handful of scenes that feels less like they're trying to establish tension and more like they really wanted to pad the runtime, so they used as much footage as they could. Still, giant killer mutant wasps is a fun concept, and it's bananas that it hasn't been done before in mainstream Hollywood. This is the only film I've ever watched that accurately portrays what being outside is like during the months of August and September. Tucker and Dale versus Evil. There's very little comedy that's as gut-bustingly pleasing as the kind that comes with a heapin' helpful of misunderstanding. So in that regard, Tucker and Dale versus Evil is pure gold. The two main characters are just a joy to watch, and when this was over, I immediately wanted to see them thrust into another wacky situation. But there isn't a sequel to be had. This film is 15 years old now, and as far as I'm concerned, it is criminal that we haven't seen Tucker and Dale misunderstand their way through a vampire's castle, or into a witch's coven or something. No, instead we got Independence Day resurgence, because everyone was just clamoring for that. The X-Files. This might be hard for modern audiences to understand, but back in the 90s, whenever a TV show was adapted into a film, it was a huge deal. The marketing campaigns for everything you see here was off the charts, relying on the emphatic power of 2 words. The movie. This wasn't just the Flintstones, this was the Flintstones, the movie. Those words carried a lot of weight and a lot of promise. Promise that what you were about to see was bigger, grander, and more awesome than everything you'd seen before on the small screen. Which brings us to The X-Files, which, I'm extremely bummed to say, was what the kids and several confused adults call mid, because there was very little the movie present here. Aside from a nice upgraded orchestral score, a bigger budget, and a few liberal uses of the word shit, this felt like nothing more than a 2-hour-long episode of the television program. Depending on who you ask, that might be a good thing, but for me, someone who grew up relishing the bombast and specialness of TV shows becoming the movies, I was as disappointed as Fox Mulder cracking open a mysterious hangar to find nothing but empty space instead of a hidden UFO. And that, as they say, is that. X-Files brings us home, because we always do these in alphabetical order, and it would be weird if something else brought us home. What a great solid chunk of movies for Review Marathon 19. I'm really happy with how these 3 months turned out for me and for my viewing pleasure, and now your viewing pleasure. But we got a big milestone coming up in December. And by December, I mean January, because I'm a little mixed up right now. But on the 1st of January, or thereabouts, we will be seeing Review Marathon number 20. I can't believe we're about to reach 20 of these. I'm very excited. It's kind of a big deal. I don't know. I'm going to see if I can do something special. We're going to try to figure this out. It might be bigger than 28, because October is usually when I stuff lots of horror movies into my body. So we might end up looking at a nice big number, but Review Marathon 20 is going to be a special, special deal. Anyways, that'll do it for me, my friends. Thank you once again for tuning in. I will see you all here next time, and until then, adios.